Orson Krennic was the fearsome director who was largely responsible for the completion of the Death Star. But who is Director Krennic?
The power that we are dealing with here is immeasurable.
Krennic is a human born on Lexrol in 51 BBY, 29 years before the Clone Wars. Like many Imperial officials, Krennic's story begins with being part of the Republic, particularly the Republic Corps of Engineers, which specialised in largely humanitarian projects all around the galaxy. It was also here where he met and befriended Galen Erso. However, over time Krennic became affiliated with the Strategic Advisory Cell, which takes a far more militaristic standpoint to science and research. By the time the Clone Wars had begun, the Republic was on a full-on arms race with the Separatists, where Cleric flourished. After the first Battle of Geonosis, the Republic had secretly received the Death Star plans, and many became eager to engineer the superweapon, fearing the Separatists would create it first. Krennic used his ties made with Republic's Speaker to ensure the project was greenlighted in secret without the Senate, Jedi, and most people ever finding out. However, there was a problem. The Death Star plans were relatively vague. The Republic largely lacked the labour necessary to engineer such a massive project. As well as this, they lacked the technology to make the deadly super laser work. Krennic knew the best person for the job was his old friend Galen, who'd been imprisoned by the Separatists. For this reason, Krennic orchestrated his rescue with the help of a smuggler named Obit. The rescue was a success. Galen and his family were removed from Separatist clutches. However, much to Krennic's distaste, Galen refused to join the war effort to work on Krennic's special project, which he still knew very little about. Instead, he looked to focus on more humanitarian work. Krennic continued to work on his project, even striking a deal with the Geonosian Archduke Poggle the Lesser, who had been arrested by Republic forces. He would be released, and in exchange the mass drone Geonosian workforce would begin work on different Death Star modules. However, this was a short-lived alliance. Eventually Poggle betrayed him and the Republic and returned to Dooku, which was a major setback and embarrassment for Krennic. By the time the Clone Wars had ended and the Republic had been dissolved into the Empire, Krennic saw the opportunity to finally get Galen on board, offering a permanent position in an operation called Celestial Power, which Galen was told was to restore power back to planets laid waste to in the Clone Wars. Secretly, he had Galen conduct research on the powerful Kyber crystals, what would become the source of the Death Star's super laser. Krennic also developed an uneasy rivalry with Moff Tarkin. Krennic despised the Grand Moff as he envied how close he was to the Emperor. However, he knew that he would need his assistance if he was ever to get the Emperor's favour. In turn, Tarkin tolerated Krennic as he saw the potential for his superweapon. Krennic also hatched a plan to use his old smuggler allies to further his reach, having them harass mining corporations, which gave the Empire the excuse they needed to annex the companies, giving Krennic all the resources he would ever need for his project. Potentially the biggest blow to Krennic's career was following a failed attempt to weaponize Galen's research, which resulted in a cataclysmic disaster which destroyed vital assets as well as forced the Empire to work overtime to stop the existence of the weapon from leaking to the Senate. This resulted in Krennic earning an audience with the Grand Vizier Masa Meda, who sanctioned the project in the first place. Here Krennic attempted to earn a promotion to Rear Admiral, claiming it would create the impression that the project was succeeding far more than it actually was. However, Ameda had him demoted to a commander, which angered the careerist Krennic to no end, especially because it made him a subordinate of his old rival Tarkin. As a silver lining, however, Galen became more dedicated, as Krennic told him it was an anarchist who destroyed the facility and what he thought was his humanitarian work. Over the following years, Krennic continued to make progress on the weapon and played a difficult power game with Tarkin. However, eventually Galen's wife Lyra discovered Krennic's true plan for the weapon, and before Krennic could have her assassinated and removed, Kira, Galen, and their young child Jin went into hiding. This led to Krennic swearing to apprehend Galen and his family and force him into finishing the project he left behind, as without his specialist knowledge, the project would be severely delayed. Also, the loss of his key scientist was another huge embarrassment for Krennic. Ultimately, Director Krennic was a cunning and manipulative individual who would stop at nothing to build his superweapon, clamber up the Imperial ranks, and beat his bitter rival. However, by doing this he alienated himself from the rest of the Imperial command, which caused all manner of problems for the over-aspirational commander.